rest of this segment on our website at cspan.org. We are live now in Des Moines, Iowa, for a campaign event with presidential candidate Ron Paul. He's with his son, Kentucky Senator Rand Paul, at the Des Moines Marriott downtown. This is the first of a 5-city Iowa tour today by the candidate and his son. And in a recent poll, Ron Paul is slightly behind leader Mitt Romney. This is live coverage on C-SPAN.
Get this party started. All right, folks, it's time to get going. My name is David Fisher, and I am proud to be co-chairman of Ron Paul's presidential campaign here in Iowa. I want to do a real brief review of the history of the modern-day Tea Party movement. The date was December 16th of 2007, the 234th anniversary of the Boston Tea Party. The occasion was a grassroots-led online one-day fundraiser for Ron Paul's presidential campaign, a day that resulted in over $6 million being raised for the campaign in that one single day. The epicenter of the activity on that day was in Boston, of course, at Faneuil Hall, where the keynote speech was given by an eye surgeon named Rand Paul. And as you know, since that time, the Tea Party has gone to Washington. And the Tea Party has come to Iowa today to talk about the importance of Ron Paul's presidential campaign. I'm proud to introduce the Honorable United States Senator from the Commonwealth of Kentucky, Dr. Rand Paul.
All right, what a crowd. Anybody here for Ron Paul? Now, when my dad asked me to come and campaign in Iowa, I said, I'll come if I don't have to wear a tie. Looks like we've got some young people here. There's energy. There's energy, and it's overflowing, and it's big, and it's coming tomorrow. We're going to win in Iowa tomorrow. Now, I get to go around a lot and give a lot of speeches, and I was at a buffet recently, and I was up there near the front, and there was a guy in front of me who had 2 plates of food. And he was piling up a 3rd plate of food. Guy next to him and said, "You're not going to live very long eating like that." He said, "Well, my granddad lived to be 105. He said, "Well, I bet your granddad didn't live to be 105 eating like that." He said, "Nope, my granddad lived to be 105 by minding his own business." Anybody here want their government to mind their own business? We are borrowing $40,000 a second. We're borrowing over $2 million a minute. In the short time that we will be here today, we will borrow over $70 million. Admiral Mullen said that the biggest threat to our national security is our debt. Erskine Bowles, head of the Debt Commission, said that the most predictable crisis in our history is the coming debt crisis. Even Ben Bernanke has said that our debt is unsustainable. There is only one candidate in this race who would balance the budget in one term. There is only one candidate who would cut $1 trillion in spending. There's only one candidate who understands that conservatives and liberals will have to get together to cut spending. That conservatives will have to understand that not every dollar spent on the military is sacred or wisely spent. Liberals will have to understand the same. Not every dollar spent on domestic spending or welfare is wisely spent or sacred. Spending will have to be across the board. There is only one candidate who's never been accused of flip-flopping. There's only one candidate who's never taken a congressional junket. There's only one candidate who stands above, head and shoulders above, who lobbyists will tell you is incorruptible. There is only one candidate who the soldiers trust. One candidate who has received more contributions from active duty soldiers than all of the other candidates combined. That candidate is my father. Please welcome Ron Paul.
Good to see everybody. Wow, look at the crowd. All right, Carol here. Hey. Thank you, thank you. Now, you know we have a short time, but I'm delighted to see so many. But if you get to chanting about end the Fed, we won't have any time for his speech. So, but it is great to be here. I mean, this crowd is amazing. We were suggesting that we'd get a few people out at these whistle stops and sort of encourage everybody along. But this is almost like a real rally. This is great, wonderful. And the enthusiasm has been building. Of course, I've been in the business of promoting a cause of liberty for a lot of years, and it has changed over the years. For a long time, it was very subtle and quiet. I did it by voting all the time in Washington the way I thought I should vote. Frequently, it required me to vote no, oftentimes. But today, the enthusiasm has tremendously increased. And it's a big difference even from 4 years ago. 4 years ago, there was enthusiasm, excitement. The college campuses were coming alive. The Federal Reserve became an issue. And a lot of people back then were talking about it was time to change our foreign policy. Today, 70% of the American people are saying it's time to get out of Afghanistan and come on home. But the excitement has built steadily, and the campaign has been remarkable in the organization. The funds have come in. They've come in, as was mentioned in the introduction earlier, even 4 years ago, raising $6 million in one day was historic. But the funds still come in, which is a vote of confidence. The idea that, as well, that military personnel send a lot of money this campaign, more than any of the other campaigns. But I tell you what, the enthusiasm is growing by leaps and bounds. The crowds are getting bigger, and the issue, as far as I'm concerned, there's only one issue. You know, they talk about a lot of issues. They talk about the foreign policy, monetary policy, economic policy. There's one issue that has made America great, and the issue that you can answer all your questions on is individual liberty. That is the issue. And it was the abuse of this liberty that provoked the revolution and then the writing of the Constitution. The Constitution was written as a document, though we were coming together into one country. The document was written, it was intended to at least, to strictly restrain the federal government. That's what the Constitution is all about. And yet today we have a federal government that's growing by leaps and bounds, and the best demonstration of that is the spending. Spending never ceases. One administration to the next, it's always spending increases. Even today when they talk about cuts, you know they're not talking about cuts. They're talking about tinkering around the edges and nibbling away at the proposed increases. What we're talking about are real cuts and the shrinking of the size of the federal government. You cannot do that unless you raise the one significant question, and that is, what should the role of government should be? If liberty is the most important issue, the most important responsibility of government is to protect liberty, and not to be the policeman of the world, and not to have a runaway welfare state. But somewhere along the way, we lost our way. We went in the wrong direction. We have allowed our government to grow. We've accepted the idea that the federal government's responsibility was to intervene in the economy, not to protect the free market economy, not to protect private property and contracts and sound money. It was to intervene and play mischief. It wasn't to protect your privacy. Right now, today, this government spends more time and energy in passing law, invading your privacy. It should be the other way around. We want exposure and openness of government. We want your privacy back. And we don't want the government to be messing around with the internet, invading our privacy. We don't need a Patriot Act that tells you that the government can come in and invade your house and your homes and your papers and everything that you do without a proper search warrant. And we certainly don't need to be moving on to the next stage, which is happening right now. Last week or 2 weeks ago, it was passed and then just recently signed by the president, authorizing the military to arrest American citizens and allowing American citizens, for citizens to be held indefinitely. That is the wrong direction. We need to reverse that direction. But we have to answer the correct question properly. What is the proper role? Stay out of running the economy, stay out of our personal lives, and stay out of the internal affairs of other nations. We don't need to be doing that. One of the great facilitators on the way the spending got out of control and the government expanded was the way our monetary system works. If a country wants to do something and they have to tax, there's a limitation that people wake up, oh, they're taxing us and we're not getting anything from it, and they rebel. So they devised this other system of borrowing and delaying the payment. But now they have used this other technique for the last 100 years, but it's totally out of control, and it's called central banking, the Federal Reserve. This idea that we allow in secret the central bank to print unlimited dollars into the many, many trillions, bailing out the friends, has to come to an end. That is the reason government gets so big. So not only do we want an audit of the Fed, we want to make sure that we have something much better than the current Federal Reserve System that we have today. We had a grand experiment in our history. We were the greatest nation, the freest nation, with the largest middle class ever. Today, that is not true. Our middle class is getting smaller by the day. There is a transfer of payments when you destroy currencies. There's a transfer of payment when you allow the lobbyists to control Washington, and Washington becomes nothing more than an auction. And this is the reason that we have to reassert ourselves. We have a tradition on what freedom was all about, what sound money was all about, private property, and therefore we don't have quite the task as other nations have when they want to go to a freer society. But most of history has been obligated to live under dictatorship. Today we're moving in the wrong direction, but the American people are stirring. This is what this campaign has been all about. This is what the vote is about tomorrow. Are we sick and tired of the expansion of government, the endless spending and the deficits, doing the things they weren't supposed to do and forgetting about doing the things they should be doing? Tomorrow is a very important day. Small in numbers, but a very big message. So you carry a lot of weight in this state. To send a message on which way we're going for the status quo. Believe me, You don't have to worry about the choice if you choose another candidate because the others represent the status quo, variations of the status quo. But they're not talking about a foreign policy to defend America. They're talking about mischief around the world and policing the world. Are they talking about changing the monetary policy and look at the basic problems with the monetary system and how it creates our financial bubbles? Do they really care about personal liberties? When you look at the votes and what the president has been doing, they don't care about your personal liberty, or it wouldn't be continuously undermined. So therefore, a lot is at stake. I used to say, as many have said, and some continue to say, yes, we can't spend that money because we don't want to pass it on to the next generation. Let me tell you, it's not going to happen. The next generation is here today. That is why we have to change things today and bring back the traditions of America, which means liberty, peace, and prosperity. Thank you very much.
And as we come to you from what is clearly a crowded ballroom here at the Marriott Hotel in downtown Des Moines, Iowa, as Ron Paul wraps up the first of a series of events with his son, Senator Rand Paul. We want to get your reaction to his comments and also the countdown to tomorrow night's caucuses. Our phone lines are open at 202-737-0001. That's our line for Democrats, and 202-737-0002 for Republicans. We do have a line set aside for those of you who live here in the Hawkeye State, 202-628-0205. We'll get to your calls in just a moment. David Brody has been following this process from the very beginning for the Christian Broadcasting Network. And I want to ask you about the poll that came out yesterday indicating a couple of things. First of all, that maybe a third of the evangelical vote will not participate tomorrow night, and about 41% could change their mind from yesterday through tomorrow evening.
Well, a couple things. I think the polling may be a bit skewed in terms of how they ask some of those questions. It depends. I mean, there's going to be a major evangelical vote here in Iowa, but what's going on here is there's, like you said, a lot of undecided still, and it's because of Santorum, Bachmann, Perry, and even Ron Paul. We are seeing a lot of libertarian Christians go into the Ron Paul camp, and that has kind of mucked up the waters a little bit here.
What role have the churches played in this Get Out the Vote effort? Most notably, yesterday we saw Michelle Bachmann at a church in Oskaloosa, Iowa, Rick Perry at a church service yesterday. What's happening?
Well, it's a huge difference between now and 2008. I mean, in 2008, Mike Huckabee was able to gather a lot of that homeschool and church support, but we didn't see so many pastors around Iowa really galvanizing behind certain candidates. Now, we see Ron Paul, Michelle Bachmann, Rick Santorum putting out daily press releases about, I have 14 pastors behind me, I have 23 pastors behind me. Pastors have decided in Iowa and really elsewhere, Steve, across this country, to take an active role, to take the bully pulpit from the pulpit actually out into the political airstream, if you will. And that has been a marked difference between 2008 and 2012. Why is that exactly? There are a couple different reasons, but I think what you're seeing is pastors are deciding that they're going to get bolder, kind of a black robe brigade, if you will, back from that Revolutionary War period, that it's time to speak up and come out as private citizens for these candidates.
So what will the story be tomorrow night? What will voters take away from Iowa? What can we expect leading into New Hampshire?
Well, I think you're going to see some sort of Rick Santorum story, whether it be a win or a second place or a third place, but I think you may see a top three finish from Rick Santorum. If that is the case, look for the story going forward to be the differences between, let's say, a Michelle Bachmann and a Rick Santorum, because I just spoke to Michelle Bachmann this morning. She's not getting out of this race at all after Iowa, no matter what happens. She'll go all the way to South Carolina. As a matter of fact, she told me that they're skipping New Hampshire. They'll be there for the two debates, but she's going to South Carolina. So now she is going to start to paint Rick Santorum as someone that backed what she said this morning to me as pro-abortion candidates like Arlen Specter and Christine Todd Whitman. You're going to see a lot of that, and she's also calling him a big spending Republican. So those will be the fault lines coming up in the future.
David Brody of CBN, I know you're heading on to cover Rick Santorum. Thanks for spending a few minutes with me.
Thanks again, Steve.
So on to your phone calls. A lot of people moving around here at the Marriott Convention Center, so just people coming back and forth. It's kind of crowded here. We'll go to John in Sheridan, Wyoming, Republican line. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I want to thank you, first of all, for being there today. And the thing that concerns me is twofold. Number one, there are a number of Republican candidates who, like Ron Paul, say that they're pro-life. Yet, unlike Ron Paul, these other neocon Republicans can't wait to get us into yet another war and another war and another war with countries who have never attacked the United States at any time in our 235-year history. The second thing that disturbs me is these fraudulent polls that keep coming out trying to play down the popularity of Ron Paul. Think back to the 1984 presidential election when the same expert pollsters said that Walter Mondale and Geraldine Ferraro were just going to annihilate Reagan and Bush. Whatever happened to those predictions?
Okay, thanks for the call. We'll go to Justin next, Democrats line from Kentucky. Go ahead, Justin. A lot of activity here. Kind of loud, but we can hear you. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, sir. I think I may be the only liberal in a small eastern Kentucky coal mining town. And, you know, I strongly supported President Obama in 2008, and I feel like everything he said in 2008, he's done the opposite since he took office. You know, and I don't really feel like I could vote for any other Republican aside from Congressman Paul because, you know, I'm really, really strongly pro-liberty. I think you should be allowed to do whatever you want as long as you're not bothering anybody. And second, you know, his policies haven't changed in 76 years. Isn't he 76 years old? You know, I just feel like that you, at least you know what you're getting with the guy. You know, you can't really go back and say, well, he's flip-flopped on really anything, or he's said one thing and took one position and voted another way. So I just feel like, I never thought I'd say this, but, you know, I guess I'm a libertarian or something, you know. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you. How about Jack in Des Moines, Iowa? Go ahead, please.
Yes, I would just like to state that the real problems with America is not over who wins the Republican nomination. Even though I am a Republican, I could not possibly support Mitt Romney under any circumstances. And I think that probably Newt is the one that has the best chance of defeating Barack Obama. And all the pundits who are lining up with the media's view that has really blasted Newt on all of his things. I would like to say that when Newt was the Speaker of the House, I was in Georgia. And at one point, I was even offered a job by him. I refused because Judge Kelly, whom I was working with at the time in Albany, Georgia, said that really I needed to keep doing what I was doing, which is writing articles about unintended treason of the socialists in America, but it's still treason. And I think that Newt is probably the only one that stands up for the real working people, not Mitt Romney, nor Ron Paul. I probably would not vote ever for Mitt Romney under any circumstances. I don't like wishy-washy people.
Jack, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. From here in Des Moines. Again, let me set the stage. We're at the first of a series of events for Congressman Ron Paul, joined by his son, Senator Rand Paul, who was elected last year, the Republican senator from Kentucky. Later today, we'll be catching up live with Rick Santorum, and tonight in Clive, Iowa, the final campaign rally with Mitt Romney, and all of our campaign coverage, including last night's event with Newt Gingrich and our weekend event coverage with Rick Perry, available on our website at cspan.org. A programming reminder, tomorrow morning at 8:30 Central, 9:30 Eastern, Representative Michelle Bachmann will be our guest on C-SPAN's Washington Journal to take your calls and emails and tweets about this campaign. As we heard from David Brody, she is essentially skipping New Hampshire, but will be competing in the South Carolina primary set for January 21st. Teresa is one of the few people here actually from Iowa. A lot of folks in attendance are being bussed in, participants are watching the process from different universities, but you're participating in the caucuses tomorrow night. First of all, your last name is?
Urison.
And what did you take away from today's event with Senator? What did you take away from today's event with Congressman Paul?
Oh, his message is so right on, and I think we need a leader like him, because in my opinion, this country is going in the wrong direction.
Can Ron Paul get the nomination?
I would hope he would. The only way he will, though, is through getting the word out, and the media has not been a great help to him. Actually, most of my information I get from the internet. And to me, the media, last week it was Newt Gingrich, and now this week it's all about Santorum. And I just do not agree with the fact that, what am I trying to say? That the media just totally ignores him, and his message, though, is the only one that can even try to turn our country around, because otherwise we're all going to be doomed.
What is your role tomorrow night? Where will you caucus, and how will you be involved?
I am going to fill in one of the chairs at one of the caucus sites at Roosevelt High School in Des Moines, and I'm on my way right now to Ankeny, to the headquarters, to find out all what I need to do tomorrow night. But I'm definitely going to be there, and like I said, to me, he's the only answer, and another problem with it is people say, well, he can't do both sides of the party or both sides of the Congress, but yet he has in like auditing the Fed. And we do not need to be the policemen of the world. Why are we in all these silly police actions? Why are they sending to Australia troops to defend us against China when we have to borrow money from China to defend ourselves from China? It makes no sense.
Teresa, thanks very much. You sound like many of our viewers who phone in on C-SPAN. We appreciate it.
I'm glad. Go Ron Paul.
Thanks for your time. Back to your phone calls. Again, we're in downtown Des Moines, Iowa with the Ron Paul campaign. Many people still sticking around. A lot of media one day before the caucuses. We are covering two caucuses, one in central Iowa, another in the western part of Iowa. You can watch one here on C-SPAN, another live on C-SPAN 2. And next up is Jack joining us from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Good afternoon to you, Jack.
Yes, I have a comment, first of all, about auditing the Fed. Those of us that really understand financial matters understand that the upcoming financial crisis is the biggest threat to our national security. That all goes back to the Fed. Now, secondly, I've heard every other candidate in the Republican race talking about the capability of Iran to get a nuclear weapon. Isn't that really a good point? Because most of us know that Israel would never allow Iran to get a nuclear weapon, and they would, in fact, attack them before that happened. And that's all I have.
Thanks for the call. We're not only taking your calls and also checking with folks here, including Wise Cup family from outside of Des Moines, Iowa. Introduce your wife and daughter.
This is my wife, Sherry, and my daughter, Emily.
Why are you here today?
We're here to let Emily see the candidates. She hasn't had a chance to get out. Me and Sherry have been out with some of the candidates, and we just wanted to get her out, too.
So, Emily, as you watch this process, by the way, are you in high school, college? How old are you?
Yep, I'm in high school. I just turned 18 in September.
So what are your thoughts about this process as a new voter in 2012?
It's very exciting. I didn't realize that it was going to be so crazy, I guess.
And what did you take away from Ron Paul's speech here today?
That he wants to give us back our individual liberties.
Are you a Ron Paul supporter?
Not yet. I'm still undecided.
Have you made up your mind?
Nope, I'm still undecided. I want to see what all the candidates have to say.
And how about you?
I'm still undecided. Yesterday I was torn between Santorum and Gingrich. Today I'm torn between Santorum and Ron Paul.
When will you make up your decision?
When I talk with my neighbors.
And let me ask you about the process, because many people who don't live in Iowa see what you have here. You're literally going from campaign event to campaign event. So if you could explain what it's been like for you to watch this process on the front line.
It's pretty exciting. You get to see them up close. Sometimes you get asked questions. It's this is a little crazy today with so much media.
It's very crowded.
Yeah, it's very crowded. But this is my first time doing these things too, so I don't know what it's like normally.
So is this like a high school civics 101 or political science?
Actually, I took government last year, and I'm taking college classes for history right now, so no extra credit today, but...
There's no school today.
Yeah,
nope.
That was one reason is we actually got a chance. We're working people, and you can't get out.
Final question for both of you. And are you going to participate tomorrow night in the caucuses? So when will you make up your decision, and what will allow you to finalize your decision?
It'll probably be down to the last minute. I mean, maybe it'll be around the kitchen table. Maybe it'll be with her neighbors.
Yep, that's what I'm thinking too. I want to hear what everybody has to say.
Me too. Yep, we're all undecided.
For that 41% of the Des Moines Register poll, the Wise Cup family from here in Iowa, thanks very much for being with us. Continue with your phone calls. Next up is Dorothy joining us from Clinton Township, Michigan, our line for Republicans. Dorothy, thanks for waiting. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon. Oh, it excites me so much to see so many people there. I've been watching this vigorously, listening to Michelle Bachmann, Newt Gingrich. If I could do anything to get a message out, I would say don't vote for Gingrich. He's a globalist, and he might be a great speaker and everything, but his policies will just fall right behind Barack Obama's. Ron Paul has got so much respect from so many people, and the media is untruthful, they're biased, and they do anything to black him out. And like the one woman said, Teresa, I get most of my information from the internet, and I'm about her age, I would say. And so it's not only the young people, it's not only the Army people, military people, people like myself who are, middle-aged, I guess you could call me. We're throwing our support behind Ron Paul. So Ron Paul is the only last best hope we have for our country to get back, to make things right, because we are just headed down the tubes if not for Ron Paul. Thank you very much.
Thanks for the call. I want to introduce you to Patrick Clark and Cameron Perrin. We ran into these students in Oskaloosa, Iowa. They were part of a caravan that came in from Taylor High School in Cincinnati, Ohio. So you left Saturday morning at 7 o'clock, met up with Rick Santorum at that late afternoon event on Saturday. What did you see yesterday, and what are your thoughts about Ron Paul today?
Did Newt Gingrich yesterday.
Yep. Today was a totally different experience from the other Republicans that we went and saw. I feel like Ron Paul is totally different, independent of the Republican Party at this point. In some regards, a conservative candidate, I'd say, but at the same time is looking for reforms now. And I found that pretty admirable about him, that he would go out on a limb and do his own thing.
I have to ask you, what a neat experience to be in high school, to leave Ohio, to come here to Iowa. How did this all come about, and what have you learned over the last couple of days?
Well, heard about the trip, kind of excited me. I thought I might want to come out and see what the caucus is all about and how it works and everything. I've learned a lot about the candidates for this future election that I'm going to be able to vote in.
It's been a really interesting process to see all the different candidates come out and try to get support before the caucuses and leading up to the caucuses. I never really knew so much went on in Iowa before or leading up to the caucuses. I mean, you see everything on TV, but you never really get a feel for it until you come out here. It's a really interesting experience.
Interested in public office yourself?
I don't know. I mean, I have a lot of support for Ron Paul, but...
Honestly, no, I'm not looking to go into politics or anything, but this is still a neat experience, though.
Cameron and Patrick from Taylor High School in Cincinnati, Ohio. You guys came in on Saturday. You go back to Ohio on Wednesday. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
We're going to continue with more of your phone calls. Again, we're coming to you live from downtown Des Moines as the Ron Paul event wraps up. Live coverage later this afternoon of the Rick Santorum rally, and then later this evening, Mitt Romney, who is wrapping it up with a late evening rally. We'll have coverage underway at about 9:30 or 10 o'clock Eastern time. Jeff, patiently on the line from San Francisco. Go ahead, please.
Hi there. I'm a Democrat, and I really like Ron Paul. I really like what he says about civil liberties and restoring civil liberties. I like what he talks about bringing the troops home, which I thought Obama was going to do before he was elected on the campaign trail. So what I'm doing is I'm changing my registration just this year for Republican, and that's so I can help get Ron Paul nominated. And then I'm going to register back to Democrat after I vote for Ron Paul in the primaries.
Next is John joining us from Des Moines, Iowa. Go ahead, please.
Yes, this is John, and I am independent, but changing mine to Republican just to vote for Ron Paul because other candidates will send us to doomsday, and I really believe that other candidates who are pro-war, they must promise to American public that they will send their own sons and daughters or nephews and nieces to war. If they go to war, they should send their loved ones to war instead of other poor people we send to war. So I change my party just to vote, Republican, just to vote for Ron Paul. He is my candidate. Thank you.
John, thanks for the call. Our partners here in Iowa, the Des Moines Register and the CBS affiliate, KCCI, we have links available on our website at cspan.org/campaign2012. Again, continuing coverage all day into the evening here on C-SPAN. Tomorrow night, live coverage both here on C-SPAN and C-SPAN 2 of the caucuses. The only network that will show you the caucuses in their entirety. We'll also have the speeches by the winners and losers, and then on to New Hampshire. January 10th is the New Hampshire primary, followed by South Carolina and Florida. And so all of this is part of C-SPAN's Road to the White House coverage.